Hello, welcome to this week's yoga class. My name is Candi. Go ahead and find a comfortable seat on your mat, legs crossed. If that doesn't feel good, maybe if your hip flexors are tight, you can sit on a block or you can grab a rolled up towel or a pillow, whatever you have available in your home. I always like to begin by giving my students something to kind of think on or ponder about during the practice. And something that's been on my mind a lot lately is this idea of trust. So this last semester, I read a book by Ethan Zuckerman. It's called Mistrust: Why Losing Faith in Institutions Provides the Tools to Transform Them. So I'm a graduate student in a sociology program. This is kind of my jam. If you're a social science person as well, you might also really like this book. Not like a paid promotion at all, just a book that I've really liked and has kind of been on my mind with everything happening recently. I don't know when you're watching this, but we've had a lot of the Supreme Court rulings come out in the last week, and so the book does a great job of explaining the history. And really in America, our trust levels in our institutions, our politics, our economics is really low. But he gives a lot of ways that we can still affect change as individuals. And so for me, I've been thinking a lot about how we trust ourselves. And that's such a great thing to think about on the mat because it's a time where we're really tuning in. So how do we trust our body? How do we trust what we're feeling? How do we trust and know when to go into a pose, when not to go into a pose? Really trusting our gut. And also trusting our voice. So how do we speak up about the things that we really care about, and how do we share what's important in the world? So just something to think about, noticing any kind of sticky areas for you, knowing where you may need to really push yourself to find the trust in yourself, and especially in your body. We're gonna go into some poses that might really challenge that for you today. And then taking that off the mat, so knowing when we can really trust our gut and trust our voice to really share our work with the world and share and talk about the things that we're really passionate about and the things that we really believe in. So that's just something for you to think about today on the mat. And I'll guide you really specifically when we get to some of those more challenging poses. So again, in a comfortable seat, we'll start with some arm stretches today. So go ahead and take the right arm across the body, grabbing the wrist here, trying to keep the arm straight, but it's okay to have a soft bend in the elbow, really feeling this stretch in the outer arm, maybe even in the shoulder. Taking a nice slow inhale and a slow exhale. Just arriving here. Go ahead and switch the arm, bringing the left arm across, grabbing at the wrist. And notice where your shoulders are at. If they've started to come up already, see if you can really drop the shoulders down the back. Taking another big inhale. And another exhale. Go ahead and let that go. And then we'll inhale, bring both of the arms up, dropping the right arm, grabbing the elbow, and giving that a nice pull backwards. Again, trying to keep the shoulders down the back. We also want to keep our head lifted, so not dropping the chin, but staying upright, looking forward. Nice big inhale, a nice big exhale. We'll extend through the arms and drop the left arm behind the back, grabbing the elbow. Really making sure we're sitting up tall, staying rooted through our sit bones, tall spine. Go ahead and inhale the arms back up. This time we're going to twist over towards the right, hooking the left hand on the knee. We'll take another inhale to find length in the spine, and then exhale, twisting all the way around, bringing the gaze over the back shoulder. So we're feeling this twist in the spine, but also a little bit in the neck as well. Again, just a nice, easy warm-up. Slowly begin to unwind. We'll inhale the arms up overhead. And then as we exhale, twisting towards the left, grabbing the knee with the right hand. Inhale to find a little bit more length. And then exhale, twist a little bit deeper, bringing the gaze over the back shoulder. Seeing if you can find a little more length with every inhale and sinking a little bit deeper into the twist with every exhale. Slowly begin to unwind. And we're gonna stretch out the wrists a little bit to get started. So go ahead and begin doing some wrist circles here. And then we'll shake out the wrists, shaking them from side to side, maybe up and down, just loosening the wrists. And then we're gonna come onto all fours, meeting in a tabletop position. So we want our shoulders over the wrists and our hips over our knees. And then we'll start by just doing little circles. So again, still stretching through the wrist, but as we come forward, we'll feel that in the back of the wrist. Take a moment to pause anywhere that feels really good for you. Maybe pausing forward. And then reverse the circles to go counterclockwise if you haven't already. Now we'll sit back on the heels and we're gonna come onto all fours again, but this time with our wrists down. So coming onto the tops of the hands. Be really gentle, take this slow. And you'll just kind of lean into the tops of the hands and the wrists and then come back. Again, really small movements here make a big difference. Just stretching out the forearm and the back of the hands. Still breathing here. You can even shift from side to side just a little bit. We'll come back onto our heels once more. Shake out the wrists. You may even want to squeeze around the wrist. So just taking your index finger and your thumb, maybe even your middle finger, and just giving the wrist a nice little squeeze. And then doing that again on the other hand. Can feel really good. All right, we'll meet again in our tabletop position. This time we're gonna come into our cat and cow to warm up the spine. So inhale, drop the belly, arching the spine. And exhale, round through the spine, chin to chest. Moving with your breath. Every inhale, you're arching the spine. And every exhale, you're rounding, tucking the tailbone and the chin. One more big cat and cow movement. Now we'll meet in a neutral spine. We're going to open up our shoulders a bit. So we'll inhale the right arm up to the sky. And then as we exhale, we're going to thread the needle coming onto the shoulder and resting the side of the face on the mat. So take a moment, still keeping your left hand planted next to the face. Really notice that your shoulders are down the back so your shoulders haven't fallen towards your ears, and that your hips are still right over your knees. If you'd like a little bit of a deeper sensation, you can slowly begin to walk the hand out towards the top of the mat, staying up on tinted fingers. And then we also have a little bit of a balance here. So you'll lift your left leg up very slowly. I like to first bring my foot out, just balancing on the ball of the foot, and then you may begin to lift through that leg. So notice here, first how your shoulders are feeling. And if you're coming into the balance and you haven't done this before, notice the amount of trust that it takes. And then we'll slowly lower our leg back to the earth, walk the left hand down. We'll inhale, opening up through the right side again. And then exhale, bringing the hand down to the mat. We'll do that on the left side as well. So inhale the left arm up, and exhale, thread the needle, coming onto the shoulder, finding the right hand in front of the face. Taking a moment here just to notice what you're noticing, feel what you're feeling in the shoulders. And then if you'd like a little bit more, you can begin to walk the right hand out towards the top of the mat, staying on tinted fingers. And then again, if you'd like that balance, you can begin to extend through the right leg. First, maybe finding the balance just on the ball of the foot, and then you can begin to lift the leg into the air. Again, notice the trust here in your body, feeling really rooted on the earth. Taking a deep breath. And then we'll slowly lower the leg back down to the mat. Walk the right hand in under the face. And then we'll inhale, sweeping the left arm up. And then coming back down onto the mat, meeting in all fours in a tabletop position. From your tabletop position, we're going to tuck the toes under and then lift the knees off of the mat just an inch, really firing up the core, feeling your legs engage. And then we'll shoot the hips back, coming into a crouched position first, and then extending up to your downward facing dog. Take a moment. We need to shift your feet here. Pedal them out just a bit, maybe even wiggling the tailbone back and forth. We'll take a big inhale, coming up onto the balls of the feet, and then exhale, root the heels down, feeling that stretch in the back of the calf. Inhale to the balls of the feet, and then as you exhale, slowly begin to make your way to the top of the mat. Feet coming between the hands in a first forward fold. Maybe want to heel toe your feet out a little bit wider. Letting the arms hang, grabbing opposite elbows. You can bend down through the knees, which can give you a little bit more of a release in the low back. And as you straighten, you may begin to feel that more in the hamstrings. Slowly bring the hands back down to the earth. We'll inhale, waving the spine up, half lift, finding a flat back. And then exhale, bend the knees deeply, waving the spine up, vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming to stand at the top of your mat in a mountain pose. Feeling rooted here. We'll inhale, sweeping the arms up, around, overhead. And then exhale, hinge at the hips, fold over the legs. We'll inhale, waving the spine up, half lift, hands to shins or the thighs. And then exhale, plant the hands, stepping back to plank, top of a push-up. Rock forward on your tippy toes to get your shoulders over your wrists, and then come down to your knees for just a moment. Really finding this pose here, your body should be at an angle. So if you feel like you're more in tabletop right now, really try to drop the hips down. And then we're going to lower to the mat, going so slow, keeping the elbows in towards the side. We're going to start to lower in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and untuck the toes. We'll inhale up for baby cobra. And then exhale back, pushing up to that plank pose, and then back to downward facing dog. Take a moment, pedal out the feet. And then we'll bring our toes to touch at the back of the mat, and inhale the right leg up for three-legged down dog. And then as you exhale, silently step your foot between your hands, dropping the back knee, untucking the back toe, and inhale up for your low crescent lunge. Take a moment here. Settle into this pose. inhale together. And then as you exhale, you're gonna swoop your arms down and then straighten through the front leg, coming into half splits. Take a moment here in half splits to really find this pose. Blocks are a great thing to use here if the floor isn't quite accessible to you. Or again, if you have pillows at home, you can use those as well. You can even begin to reach towards the right foot. Take a moment to really fold over this leg, feeling the stretch in the back of the hamstrings. Slowly begin to bend through the front leg, planting the foot on the earth. We're gonna tuck the back toes and lift the back knee, bringing the left hand down, planted almost under the face. We're gonna open up for an easy twist, lifting the right hand up into the air. Really still trying to square off your hips, so you should feel like you're pressing your right hip down. You can have a soft gaze up towards the right hand. Now from here, we're going to come into our high crescent lunge in a twist. So first get light on the left hand, feeling like you can lift that, and then we'll pop up, keeping the arms open. You may want to heel toe your front foot a little bit wider on the mat. And then we'll inhale, dropping the right hand down the back, trying to hook it on the back leg, and then lifting the front arm up for a little bit of a reverse. We'll meet back in our twisted position, and then inhale, sweep the hands up for our high crescent lunge. Exhale to really settle into this pose. Find the stretch. Really feeling it in the front of the hip flexor and the quad on the left foot, or the left leg. So if you're not feeling that, you may want to bend the knee, really tuck the hips under, and then come up. We're slowly going to make our way into a warrior three. So bringing the hands to heart center, feeling rooted in the front leg, we'll slowly begin to spring off. Coming into our balance, warrior three. The left leg is extended long behind you, flexing through the foot, so feeling like you're trying to stamp your foot against the back of the room. You can bring your hands down to the mat or down to blocks. That's where I always catch myself on a day that I'm not feeling as balanced. You can keep your hands at heart center. You can airplane the arms or extend them long in front of you. Take one more big inhale here. And then slowly you'll drop the back leg to the outside edge of the right foot. So your feet are crossed and we're in a forward fold. Really hanging out here for a moment. You can begin to maybe walk the hands from one side to the other. That will change the sensation that you feel in the outer hip. So just notice if that feels better on one side or the other. Coming back to center, bringing the hands right underneath of you. We're gonna uncross the feet and your feet will come wide on the mat. So about mat distance apart. And then we're gonna drop our hips coming into a Malasana squat. So you can see here from the side, we're using our elbows to press into our knees and then still trying to keep a long spine. Take a breath here. If your hips are feeling really tight, you can also sit on a block or bring a couple of pillows underneath of the tailbone. Taking a little bit of the weight off of the knees and the feet. take one more big inhale. And then as you exhale, we're gonna plant the hands on the earth and come into a wide-legged forward fold. Again, your feet are still about mat distance apart. You may even wanna kind of pigeon toe your feet in a little bit. You can even rock the hips from side to side. Really just letting that go. Notice how that stretch felt in your hips. We're gonna come into one more big hip opener. We're gonna come into lizard. So planting the hands on the mat in front of you. Your right foot is gonna stay to the outside edge of the mat, and you're gonna step your left leg back again. Drop the knee down. So both of your hands should be on the inside of your right foot. This is lizard pose, so take a moment to land here first. With the arms up, you may even want to roll to the outside blade of your right foot. You can push into your knee to open up the hip flexors a little more. And then from here, you may also want to come down onto your elbows or onto blocks or pillows. And we'll take 3 long, slow breaths in this pose. Really tuning inward, maybe even close your eyes here. Notice how you're feeling in each hip. And see if there's an adjustment you made or you want to make. Maybe you came down to your elbows, but it's not quite feeling right today. There's nothing wrong with coming back up onto the hands. So you can always come out of a pose a little bit if you went in and maybe it's a little bit too deep or too much sensation for the day. Or maybe you want to sink a little bit deeper. As your hips begin to open, you might want to come down a little bit closer to the mat. So we'll take one more big inhale. And then as you exhale, coming back up onto your hands if you're not already there. And we're gonna reach around for our back foot. So keeping the left hand planted, we're gonna sweep the right arm up overhead and around, and then bend through the back knee, catching the foot, and then settling in here for a nice quad and hamstring stretch. This is a pretty intense pose. You're stretching the quad on your back leg, really getting into the hip on the front, and you're in a big twist and heart opener. So really be gentle with yourself. Really breathe here. And then slowly we'll lower the foot back down, bringing the right hand planted on the mat. Heel toe the right foot in a little bit. Coming off the back knee, we'll step back to our downward facing dog. Take a moment, pedal out the feet. Notice how that felt on each side of the body. We'll bring our toes to touch at the back of the mat. And this time we'll inhale the left leg up and back for 3-legged down dog. And then as you exhale, quietly step the foot between the hands, lower the back knee, untuck the back toe, and inhale the arms up for our low crescent lunge. On the exhale, we're really gonna settle into the pose. Noticing if you're feeling any pain in the low back to come out of the pose a little bit. Focus on tucking the tailbone, and then if there's space, you can deepen into this stretch. That's gonna really help protect your low back here. We'll take one more big inhale, and then exhale, sweep the hands down, extending through the front leg for half splits. So here we still want to feel like our hips are level, so you're likely going to have a sensation like you feel like you're trying to push your left hip down and back. You can use blocks to bring the earth a little bit closer to you, finding a long spine, And then slowly begin to fold over the leg, really releasing the neck and the head. We'll take 3 long breaths here, seeing if you can send the inhale to the sensation in the back of the leg. And every exhale, see if you can sink a little bit deeper. We'll slowly begin to bend through the front leg. Bring our hands next to the front foot. We'll tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, coming into our easy twist. So the right hand stays planted on the earth. Left arm opens up towards the sky. Still feeling like you're trying to get your hips level. So you're likely gonna feel like you're again trying to tuck that left hip. We want our shoulder blades coming down the back. And you can have a soft gaze up towards the hand. Now coming up into our high crescent lunge with a twist. So again, get light first on the right hand. So even coming up to the fingertips and then really engaging through the core, and the legs will finish extending and standing here in a twist. Now inhale, dropping the left hand, trying to hook the back leg and extending up through the right arm. Taking another big inhale. And then exhale back to our twist. And then inhale up to our high crescent lunge. Taking a moment, we should really feel this in the front of the quad, front of the hip flexor. You can bend to the back knee to again find that tuck in the tailbone, and then extend it long if there's space. From here, we're gonna come into our warrior 3. So hands to heart center, really feeling rooted in the front foot. We're gonna get light on the back leg and then lift off, coming into our warrior 3. Really flexing through the back foot. I'm gonna bring my hands down just so I can talk through this without worrying about balancing, but we really wanna get level in the hips. So when you're flexing, if you can look back and see all 5 toes, you know that you're level. And then you can keep your hands down on blocks or on pillows or down to the earth, or you can begin to lift, bringing hands to heart center, airplaning, or extending them long in front of you. Woo. Take another big inhale, and then as you exhale, lower the back leg, crossing it behind the standing leg. So your feet are crossed, and we're in a forward fold. Again, you can walk from one side to the other, changing the sensation in the outer hip. And then our hands are planted in front of us. We'll uncross the legs, bringing them about as wide as the mat, and then dropping the hips down for our Malasana squat one more time. Our toes are going to be outward, so we want our knees coming over our toes. Again, hands at heart center, your elbows are really pressed into the knees, feeling the hips sink between the feet while keeping a really long spine. Take 2 more breaths here. Again, maybe closing the eyes, really tuning inward, noticing how does this feel in my body. If there's any pain, especially in the knees, come out of this pose. But otherwise, if it's just a stretch or you feel like your hip flexors are tight, see if you can sit and breathe through that. Take Take one more inhale. And as you exhale, we're gonna plant the hands down, extending through the legs, just coming into a forward fold. Your feet will be about as wide as the mat. Maybe they're off the mat right now. Let's take our peace fingers and hook them around the big toe. We'll inhale, finding a flat back, and then exhale, fold a little bit deeper. Really letting the neck go. Maybe shaking it yes and no, side to side. Now we'll unhook our peace fingers, hands underneath of us. We may even need to step over on our left foot onto the mat, and then we're gonna bring the right leg back behind us, coming into lizard pose. So first finding this, making sure the front knee's over the front ankle, then lower the back knee, untucking the toes. You may wanna stay here first with the arms extended long. You can roll to the outside blade of the left foot, maybe even pushing into the knee to open up the hip flexor. There's really so many variations we can take in lizard. So this is a pose that's all about listening to your body. It's a great kind of stagnant pose where we're not doing a lot of like active engagement. We're stretching, but we're really tuning inward. And then notice if you feel like you want to come a little bit lower, you can come onto your elbows. You can also stay upright. You can play with coming to the outside blade of the foot, maybe rocking it back in. Really breathe here. Again, closing the eyes is always a good way for me to tune inward. Really notice the sensations that I'm feeling, especially in the hips. We hold so much emotion and stress and energy in the hips, so we're releasing a lot of that. So just notice anything coming up for you. See if you can really release and let it go. Well, slowly, if you haven't already, you can come back up onto the hands. And we're going to come into our quad stretch. So this time, planting through the right hand, we're lifting the left hand up and back and around, bending through the back knee, reaching for the foot. And then you can slowly begin to drop the hips a little bit lower. Again, really breathe here. Big stretch in the quad, the hips, the heart. We're going to twist. Notice what you're noticing. Feel what you're feeling. Notice the way you can trust your body to come into this pose. And then slowly release the back foot. Bring the left hand down. We'll lift the back knee, stepping back to a plank pose this time. And you can lower down to your knees or stay in plank. We're gonna rock forward on our tippy toes and lower all the way or halfway to the earth. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra. Really enjoying this stretch here. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. Come on down to your knees. Sit back on your heels, and we're gonna go into crow pose. So this is a really challenging pose. It's gonna challenge your balance. If you've done crow, doesn't matter how many times, I think it takes a lot of intention and focus. And so I'll demo this for you and then also give you a little bit of time to play as well. So coming into crow pose, our hands are planted firm. A lot of people come into it from Malasana squat. So I first just like to, here, I'll almost face the camera. I just like to come kind of up onto the balls of my heels first, planting my hands in front of me. You're gonna come onto your hands so that you're really bending and feeling like you're in that position when you're in a push-up. So where your elbow is over the wrist and your arm is there, that's where you're gonna place your knee. So with our hands planted in front of us, we come forward and your knees are gonna come up onto the back of your arms, your triceps. So here we're putting a lot of weight into our wrists. That's why we stretched out our wrists today. And you're wanting to keep your elbows tucked in. So notice that, and your gaze is in front of you. Now this is where it can feel a little bit scary if you've never come into crow, because it feels like if you go too far, your face is the first thing that lands. But I promise you can actually hold yourself up. You may want to play first with just lifting one leg, maybe placing the toes back down, and then lifting the other. And then if it feels all right, you can come up into a full crow position. So go ahead and play with that a little bit. When you're in crow, both of your feet are lifted. Your knees are on the back of your triceps, but you're still hugging the legs in, so your core is engaged. Your gaze, your point of focus with your eyes should be under you, not back towards your hands. So really like you're looking forward. And then you can slowly lower the feet back down onto the earth. So you can pause this here if you want to take a little bit more time to play with crow pose. I think it can be really helpful to practice just lifting one leg and then the other, especially as you're building the strength in your arms. And then you'll slowly begin to feel comfortable really just popping both feet off of the ground and balancing in crow, which takes a lot of hand, arm, and wrist strength. So feel free to also take a moment to stretch out the wrists, kind of roll them out when you're finished playing. And when you're ready, you can hit play again, and we're gonna really cool down and come into our Shavasana. So we'll go ahead and come onto our backs. Our feet are on the earth in front of us, knees bent. We're gonna grab onto the back of the thighs and slowly begin to roll down onto the mat, placing each vertebrae onto the earth. We're gonna come into bridge pose. So planting the feet about hip distance apart so they're close enough to you that you can brush the back of the heels with the fingertips. From here, we're gonna feel like we're pressing our navel down towards the mat. So really finding length in the spine. And then we'll slowly begin to lift the hips, feeling like we're peeling each vertebrae off of the earth. We can clasp our hands underneath of us, really pushing into the sides of the hands and the arms. And then maybe even tucking the shoulders to add a little bit more of a lift in this pose. Keeping the feet rooted, feeling like you're pulling your legs together, so squeezing the inner thighs. They're not actually touching, they're still about hip distance apart, but we want to feel like we're pulling the legs together. Notice your breath. You can even bring your gaze to your belly. This is a great pose where you can really see the breath, the rise and fall of the chest and the belly as you inhale and as you exhale. We'll slowly unclasp the hands, and then we're waving the spine down. So feeling like we're placing each vertebrae back onto the mat. When our hips touch the earth, we'll hug our knees into our chest, giving ourselves a nice squeeze. And then slowly from here, we'll drop the knees over towards the left side, extending the arms wide in a T. You can bring the gaze over the right shoulder. And if that's a little bit too much of a stretch in the outer hip or the knees, you can place a block or a pillow underneath of the knees. Or if you'd like a little more sensation, you can place your hand on top of the knees. to just give them a little bit of a pull down towards the earth. You can close your eyes here. Really just beginning to wind down the practice, but staying present, noticing how you're feeling. And then we'll slowly bring our knees back up through center, hugging them into the chest, and we'll drop them over towards the right side, extending the arms wide in a T. You're really trying to keep your shoulders on the mat as much as possible. So you're feeling this twist all the way through the spine. Bringing the gaze over the left hand. And again, if it's comfortable, you can close your eyes or have a soft gaze over the left hand. We'll slowly bring the knees back towards center, hugging them in towards the chest. We'll come into our happy baby. So we'll thread the hands between the legs, and then you're reaching for the outside of the feet, or you can always grab the ankles or the shins. Really pulling the knees back and trying to get the feet so you could stamp them on the ceiling. So it's that kind of sensation. The knees are tracking towards the elbows. And then we also have a goal to lower the tailbone. So notice if your tailbone is up really high like this, and see if you can rock your tailbone down to the earth. So we have a nice long spine. I'm getting a nice stretch here. You can even rock back and forth a little bit. I feel like that just happens really naturally for a lot of people when they're in happy baby. And then we'll let that go. Again, hugging the knees into the chest one more time. And then coming into our final resting pose of Shavasana. Extending the legs long onto the mat. Arms wide to the side. We'll pause here for just a moment together. I'll have a playlist linked in the description for this yoga flow, and there's a nice song near the end of that that's about 5 minutes. So this is always a good time if you're following along with that playlist. You can even pause the video to take a nice long Shavasana on your own. But for now, I'll take a shorter Shavasana with you. Just taking a moment to let the body sink towards the earth, really feeling held. Noticing the trust that you've built in yourself and your capabilities and your body, coming into some of those more challenging poses. And if you didn't quite get all the poses yet, that's totally normal. That's why yoga is called a practice. It's always something that we can come back to. And we can trust that we'll do that for ourselves. We'll continue in this practice. Slowly begin to bring some movement back into your fingers and toes. And on your next inhale, make it a really big stretch overhead, reaching through the fingers and the toes, lifting the spine off the mat. And then exhale, let all of that go. Slowly come onto either your right or left side, using the arm as a pillow in your fetal position. Taking a big inhale, filling the back of the heart, the back of the lungs. And then exhale, push your way up into a nice, easy seat, keeping the eyes closed or the gaze inward. We'll bring our hands to heart center, bowing the head in reverence for this practice. The light in me honors and acknowledges the light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again next week.